really become a subject of ridicule and distress until the 1960s, and it might be because at that time Britain had left its empire behind for the final time, and a more critical approach was taking place. This was a time of a club set up in the West End called The Establishment, which was a satirical club making fun of things like that, particularly the British Empire and what it stood for. There had been criticism of the Great War, as it was called. R.C. Sheriff wrote Journey's End, which would lead 50 years later to Blackadder, of course. And there was Robert Graves' Goodbye to All That in 1929, which I remember reading when I was about 16. I was very shocked to read it. But it wasn't part of the public consciousness to make fun and to criticise the Great War and our fight against Germany. But things were to change. And in 1963, somebody called Joan Littlewood produced a musical called Oh What a Lovely War in the East End. And it was a smash hit and shown on both sides of the Atlantic. And it led to a 1969 film by Richard Attenborough, the same name, which I remember going to see. My family were not ever supportive of war, and particularly the Great War. And so when there was a change of consciousness, it was something that the general public changed into a way of thinking that I'd been brought up to think like. My grandfather had been killed at the Third Battle of Ypres on the 16th of August 1917. His body was never found. And my family, as I say, were totally opposed to war. Why were they so against it? Well, one of the reasons was economic. It was because my grandmother was brought up in very poor circumstances with 3 children, and they lived on £3 a week, and my mother had to go out to work at 12 years of age after her father had been killed. So they're totally opposed to it. And during the Second World War, my mother, for example, was a member of the Peace Pledge Union, even though my father was in the Royal Navy. So they were totally opposed to war all round. But it wasn't until 1979 that I decided to go and find the battlefield where my grandfather had died, or I thought he might have died. And it was an opportunity for me to photograph the area. And one of the things I was thinking about at the time was that I'd been making things like Red Square and Hagia Sophia, which I made in 1977. And one of the features of that was taking lots and lots of little photographs. It was the time it took to photograph my piece of work. And I thought, is it possible to incorporate the idea of time into a painting or a sculpture? Well, no, you could do it with a film maybe, but how would you do it in a painting or sculpture? But then it revealed itself when I made this piece called In Flanders Fields in 1979 with lots and lots of photographs. It was 25 foot wide, and again it was shown at the Whitechapel, and I started in the morning and finished at night, and you could see the weather changing right across the piece of work and people moving around inside the Commonwealth gravestones over the whole period of time, with all the gravestones there, you see, and all standing up. Each photograph was like a gravestone in itself. When this bloody war is over, oh, how happy I will be when I get my civic clothes on. No more soldiering for me, no more church parades on Sunday, no more begging for a pass. I will tell the Sergeant Major to stuff his passes up his arse. I will sound my own reveille. I will beat my own tattoo. No more NCOs to curse me. No more fucking army stew. Well, as I say, I went to Flanders, and I've been back since. I went on the 100th anniversary with my brother of his death on the August the 16th, 2017. And I've been several times between then and now. But he was a 24-year-old boy, really. He didn't want to go to war. And when he was last saw my grandmother, he apparently said, "I won't be coming back." And he was right. The only memory I have, well, I don't have a memory of him, but the only memory of his legacy I have is that I was told he's the only member of my family who could sit down and play the piano by ear. And here he is, Jack Butler.